All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, we are still in the same position that we were 150 years ago. And we're still waiting, just expecting a change, hoping that something will come and save us. We have to understand the dominant society doesn't see us the same, and they never will. And we shouldn't be trying to convince them anyway. And we shouldn't be trying to save their system either. We should be trying to destroy it. Even when you try to change the system from within, if we do anything to help ourselves, then there's a problem. And we need to be put back in our place. Back in 1917, in East St. Louis, Illinois, so many of us were massacred in the East St. Louis riots, all because the dominant society felt like these uppity Negroes need to be put back in their place. Now, the massacre started because white residents started unionizing and going on strike. So instead of paying the white residents, these companies started hiring black people and paying them less than they were paying white workers anyway. And the white residents were mad and felt like they were crossing the picket line. Now, mind you, these unions didn't allow black people in, and they were created to keep black people from getting jobs over white people. So I don't know why they think they would have an alliance to their union, but black people were happily taking these jobs. And of course, the white residents who were already racist resented black people even more now. And they would start to spread false rumors about black crime and the crime rate in the city going up since so many black people had showed up. The whole modern day, but what about black on black crime narrative? So one day the white residents decided to have a city council meeting and decide what they were going to do with the black scabs, as they called them. So then after the meeting, they started spreading rumors of a black man robbing a white man. And a mob of anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 started to form downtown. Of course, they had to add the false rumor of black men flirting with white women. And one of them said East St. Louis must remain a white town. So then this white mob of about 3,000 started attacking every black person they came across, man, woman, and child. Attacking them while they were walking down the street or while they were on streetcars. However, this time black residents were ready and they quickly retaliated. And as soon as the black residents started fighting back, they called in the National Guard and they stopped everything before anybody was hurt. So then a couple of weeks later, some whites drove by in a black car, going through the black neighborhood, shooting up every single house. And they shot at groups of people who were standing outside, but luckily no one was hit. So then about an hour later, another black car that looked exactly the same as the car that just rolled through shooting up the neighborhood. And there's a good chance that it was the same car and the same people. But there were 4 white people in this car, including 2 cops. But this time the black men were ready. And they ended up killing one of the cops on the spot and shooting the other one who died later. But this time black men were armed and ready. So then the next day, a white mob gathered around the car the cops had been shot in. And the lynch mob of thousands of whites began attacking every black man, woman, and child they saw. One family who was simply returning home from a day trip out of town was attacked as soon as they got off the train. The mob ended up killing the father and the son, but the mother and the daughter ended up getting away. They ended up going into the black neighborhoods and black business districts where they outnumbered and outarmed the black residents. And they started beating black men, women, and children to death. They started setting black people's homes on fire. And then armed mobs would wait outside and shoot anybody who ran out the house. Families had to choose between being burnt to death and being shot to death. And the mob cut the hoses of any firefighter who tried to put out any fires. They didn't care if it was a man, a woman, a child, the elderly. They were killing everybody they could. They said these southern uppity niggas deserve a good lynching. So they just lynched several random black men, as well as women and children. They were killing so many people and just dumping their bodies in the lake, to the point where the water started turning red. Some black residents were scared and hid, waiting for a chance to run. Some met at churches praying the mob wouldn't make it to them. And the National Guard was called in, but this time they didn't do anything to stop it. In fact, some of them were encouraging it. And of course, the police didn't do anything to stop it. Some of them were involved in it. One black woman was chased by a group of 10 to 15 white girls with clubs, and they demanded that the girl be lynched. And the lynch mob went from home to home, looting and attacking people. Josephine Baker, the singer, who was just a child at the time, had to hide in the basement of a shack until a black funeral director helped her escape. And some of the funeral directors tried to help by bringing in guns and coffins, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Then towards the end of the massacre, the white mobs just walked the street, shooting anybody who was still alive. And they also lynched a few survivors while the mob cheered. Now, the bodies of black men, women, and children were popping up for weeks afterwards. But the white media reported that only 39 black people were killed and 9 white people were killed. But Ida B. Wells in the Chicago Defender reported that anywhere from 40 to 150 people were killed. And the NAACP said anywhere from 100 to 200. But some estimates say that over 1,000 people could have been killed. And it's hard to tell because some people left and never came back. So many bodies were missing. They don't know how many people were killed. And they gathered black bodies like they were hogs. And the coroner only examined a few bodies. They examined a 2-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy who was both shot in the head. And another young child was found in the ashes hiding under a bed. Now, close to 6,000 black people were left homeless and many black businesses were destroyed. Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at the time, as racist as he was, even he had to speak out against it. But by the end, 35 people ended up getting arrested. But of that 35, 25 of them were black people, compared to only 10 white people arrested. And everybody was convicted, including the black dentist, Dr. Leroy Bundy, who was pro-black and fought for black people. And so they made him the fall guy and charged him with inciting a riot. And they ended up sentencing him to life in prison. Now understand, this mindset, all of it comes from fear. And that fear increases, especially if we're in a position in something like the justice system and do anything to empower ourselves. It's a threat if we don't just go along with the system of white supremacy. We saw it with Aramis Ayala, Florida's first black state attorney. Because she didn't get on code with white supremacy, they just took all of her cases from her. We saw it with Judge Olu Stevens. Because he didn't let a black defendant have an all-white jury, they took him off the bench and made him apologize. Now in Cincinnati, a black woman who was elected in as judge, Tracie Hunter, was removed from her position and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Now let's see how this black woman, Judge Tracie Hunter, ended up getting 6 months in jail.
Counts, weeks of testimony, but all it took was one decision to decide the fate of Judge Tracie Hunter.
Verdict, count number 6. We, the jury, in the issue joined, find the defendant, Tracie Hunter, guilty.
The pandemonium in the hallway right after the verdict shows how emotionally charged this case was and remains tonight. A short time ago, the jury foreperson, Sandra Kirkham, issued a statement. She said, "I am extremely frustrated and disappointed with the results of our deliberations. The evidence presented by the prosecution was compelling and convincing. It is very disconcerting," she goes on to say, "that a judge might so attempt to manipulate our judicial system without severe consequences." 9 on your side's Tom McKee has more from inside the court.
The trial of Judge Tracie Hunter is one that's going to be talked about for quite some time here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. 25 days of testimony, 4 days of jury deliberations, 1 guilty verdict. It's been controversial, it's been emotional, and when it came to an end, the trial judge gave his colleague quite a tongue lashing.
Since ascending to the bench, Judge Hunter has gone from potential great role model to convicted felon.
That's how Judge Norbert Nadel described his colleague, Judge Tracie Hunter, moments after these words were uttered.
We, the jury, in the issue joined, find the defendant, Tracie Hunter, guilty.
Guilty of illegally helping her brother after he was fired from a county job. Jurors were hung on guilt or innocence of 8 other criminal counts.
Judge Hunter, this is a sad day for you, your supporters, our system of justice, and your family. And I'm sad, and I know you're sad too, but that's the way it came out.
In Judge Nadel's view, the 6-week trial dealt a serious blow to public confidence in the justice system.
I believe the evidence showed serious ethical violations, which included, among others, nepotism, improper judicial temperament, tardiness in rendering decisions, and denying public access to her courtroom.
Attorney Clyde Bennett wouldn't comment on Judge Nadel's remarks. Instead, he believes the conviction will be overturned on appeal.
I'm not convinced that the guilty verdict will be upheld by a court of appeals or the Ohio Supreme Court, because you can tell as a matter of law the evidentiary buttress for that count does not meet the elements of unlawful interest in a public contract.
Judge Hunter was surrounded by supporters as she left the courthouse, and they pushed their way through reporters who wanted to know her reaction to the conviction.
Chaos in the courtroom this morning as people erupted as former Hamilton County Juvenile Court Judge Tracie Hunter was ordered to serve a 6-month jail sentence. Hunter appeared to go limp and then had to be dragged out of the courtroom by a deputy. One other person was taken into custody during that scuffle. Now, Hunter was convicted in 2014. She illegally helped her brother, a juvenile court jailer, in a disciplinary hearing. Now, she filed several appeals in recent years, but Judge Patrick Dinkelacker ruled today that enough is enough. Hunter was taken to a medical center at the Hamilton County Jail. This despite cries from supporters, including the Cincinnati mayor and some council members, not to execute her sentence. 9 on your side's Palacero has more.
Inside the courtroom, former juvenile court judge Tracie Hunter supporters, including State Senator Cecil Thomas, lined the benches, praying, crying, as Judge Dinkelacker executed the sentence.
You are to do 6 months in the Hamilton County Justice Center, credit 1 day. Mr. or Ms. Deputy can take her away.
Hunter appeared to go limp, getting dragged out of the courtroom by a deputy. And through the halls to the outside of the courthouse, her supporters said justice was failed.
We cannot keep playing with these people. We cannot keep allowing this to happen to our people.
We're tired. It's not like we're asking for something that's not right. We're only asking for the bare minimums. Be fair, that's all, just fair.
But former Judge Norbert Nadel, who sentenced Hunter back in 2014, says the 6-month sentence is nothing but fair.
It was a lot less than I could have imposed. An elected public official is held to a higher standard than anybody else.
Hunter's attorney, David Singleton, as well as Mayor John Cranley, have argued that she should be set free because she's already lost so much.
She lost her job as a judge, her law license, her ability to earn an income.
But prosecutor Joe Deter, who wrote a letter read by Judge Dinkelacker, said she has some, quote, type of mental condition and that she never showed remorse, something Nadel says he brought up 5 years ago.
There's never been any remorse. It was just complete fighting of the system. Fight the system, fight the system. Maybe somebody will buy it, and nobody bought it.
Hunter has exhausted all her appeals. We're told Governor Mike DeWine has spoken with Deters on commuting Hunter's sentence, but DeWine says his office has not received requests for commutation from Hunter.
I was a little dismayed by it. Went through every court, and every court agreed with what I did 5 years ago.
Mercy and justice for her not to be punished as harshly as some of the others who should have been punished.
Because the reality is this. Tracie Hunter is not a threat to society. She's not violent. And we have offenders in this county that are much more inclined to be incarcerated than Tracie Hunter.
Now, this black woman, Tracie Hunter, was elected juvenile judge in Hamilton County. And this black woman had the nerve not to be on code with white supremacy. And she had the nerve to try to give black defendants as fair a trial as possible. In just a few years as judge, they tried to do everything they could to get her out of office. And she's been sued over 20 times by the dominant society, including by the media. In one case, she didn't allow the media to bring news cameras into the courtroom to film the juvenile defendant's face. This judge also didn't allow them to use his name or show his parents. And you know it pissed the media off. They couldn't put this young underage brother picture and name out there on the news or show his parents while calling him a thug. So they ended up suing this judge, Tracie Hunter, so they could show his face. And they started doing everything they could to remove her off the bench. They were basically calling this judge an uppity Negro that has to be put back in her place. They tried to hit her with all kinds of charges, including using a credit card. And they charged her with 8 different felonies. But they had no proof, so they had to drop all of them except for one. They found this woman guilty of trying to help her brother not get fired. Even though a prosecutor, Joe Deter, said this crime isn't enough for somebody to go to jail for, he said it was because of her attitude that she was sentenced to prison. Judge Norbert Nadel talking about she went from having a chance to be a great role model to becoming a felon. And then this judge started lecturing her about ethics before he sentenced her to 6 months.
New at 11, growing demands to release former Judge Tracie Hunter from jail. You're looking at new video of a demonstration tonight outside the home of the judge who sentenced her to jail.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is the most recent development in a story that we've been covering closely for you all day.
Judge Patrick Dinkelhocker sentenced Hunter to 6 months. Now, she was convicted 5 years ago of illegally helping her brother, who was a juvenile court jailer, in a disciplinary hearing.
Chaos erupted in the courtroom right after the judge read that sentence. You can see the scene here. Hunter appeared to go limp as she stood up from her seat there. A deputy removed her from the courtroom.
Hunter is in jail tonight. Hamilton County Sheriff Jim Neal says she is being housed in the medical facility at the Justice Center, where she will be constantly monitored by medical professionals. 9 on your side's Kristen Swilley joins us live right now from the jail with the latest developments. Kristen?
Yeah, good evening, guys. The supporters of Tracie Hunter say until she leaves here, they'll keep demonstrating. Just hours ago, they took their fight to Judge Patrick Dinkelhocker's doorstep, and for the first time tonight, he is responding.
Dinkelhocker got to go! Dinkelhocker got to go!
It was a demonstration of anger and frustration.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
That brought this quiet Green Township neighborhood to the front lines of a city's divide.
This is not where we want to be. We don't want to be doing this. We don't want to be out in front of Dinkelhocker's house.
Members of the NAACP, the Black United Front, and other activists were here for about an hour, and they say this is only the beginning.
For every day that she sits in that cage for no reason whatsoever, there will be no peace.
State Senator Cecil Thomas has known Hunter for more than 20 years. He says her sentence will create long-term implications for the city.
We will be asking and encouraging not to spend any money for those coming to the festival. We are asking those who have the opportunity to cancel their reservations.
When the crowd cleared, a new one formed in front of Judge Dinkelhocker's home. He came out to thank them.
There's a lot of good stuff in Hamilton County, and you guys do it every day.
He told me he's very unhappy and surprised that people would come in and, quote, scare the living daylights out of his elderly neighbors, while acknowledging it was their right to protest.
I'm very happy that you blessed me with being allowed to serve you as a judge, and thank you for your support.
While the tone on this street changed, the outrage continues.
What we saw today was exactly what's wrong with the criminal justice system here in Hampton County.
Regardless of how long Tracie Hunter remains in jail, she will stay where she has been since Monday, in the medical facility North Tower of the Justice Center. The sheriff says that's absolute.
I'll tell you for 2 reasons. One, because of her medical condition, qualifies her to be there, and 2, it keeps her out of the general population, and because she was a former judge, I have to protect her.
As some of her supporters demonstrated at noon,
we'll see her on the outside.
The sheriff cleared up confusion about whether he could release her on his own. He cannot. This court ruling from 2016 clearly spells it out. The sheriff lacks legal authority to release a sentenced offender based on overcrowding or budget shortfalls unless ordered by a court or the governor. Hunter is a sentenced offender.
Tracie Hunter is a low-level felon with no priors. And generally speaking, they shouldn't be in jail.
However, prosecutor Joe Deters points to her lack of remorse, lack of cooperation, and combative attitude, which leaves this.
The way to shorten her sentence is by her volunteering to sign up and do detail work.
She has yet to sign up for that, but has already led a Bible study for women in the jail. The sheriff tells us she could earn 3 days off her 6-month sentence for every one she works. Can't compel her to do it, but he'd like to see it.
There's no better way of earning time than serving God, that's for sure.
Now, this sister was able to stay out of jail for a while she appealed the decision. But of course, they upheld it. And even though they admitted whatever she did doesn't warrant jail time, they claim because of her attitude, she doesn't show any remorse for whatever she did. The prosecutor, Joe Deters, and the judge, Norbert Nadel, with their unprofessional opinions, claimed that Sister Tracie Hunter had a mental condition because she wanted to fight the white supremacy system. To them, they're claiming anybody who wants to fight the white supremacy system has a mental illness. But then again, they used to say slaves that run away had a mental illness. Now, this is the same system where white judges help white boys who are total strangers when they actually rape somebody. This is systems that help white boys like that white boy Craig Grooms, who molested a black 1-year-old baby girl and put it on the internet. He didn't do a day in jail. But they don't think twice about cases like that and when judges let these people off the hook. But this black woman helping her brother, now that's crossing the line. But that's because these judges are more likely to do the same thing and help out a white boy who's been accused of rape. And Cincinnati has a history of racism. Cincinnati just had a race riot back in 2001, which started after a young unarmed brother, Timothy Thomas, was shot in the back by police.
In Cincinnati, the FBI has begun investigating if police violated civil rights law when they shot and killed an unarmed teenager on Saturday. He is the 4th black man killed by Cincinnati police since November and the 15th since 1995. Many people are angry. ABC's Dean Reynolds is in Cincinnati tonight.
Mostly young crowds were on the streets for a second time in 12 hours today, protesting the latest shooting death of a black man by police. The riots today and overnight erupted in the wake of the shooting on Saturday of 19-year-old Timothy Thomas. Thomas, who was unarmed, had 14 misdemeanor warrants for his arrest. He was shot as he was chased on foot by police. He is the 4th African-American killed here by police since just November. Yesterday, his mother attended an emotional city council meeting.
You took a part of my life from me.
All right. Yes, they did.
So I demand to know why.
The police chief apologized and promised an investigation. The officer involved in the shooting said he feared Thomas was drawing a gun. But a police videotape of at least part of the incident, a tape that might help the public understand what happened, was impounded by authorities for a possible grand jury investigation. Mayor Charles Lucan acknowledges his city is deeply divided along racial lines.
I'm as frustrated as everybody else in this city, and I don't have a rabbit in the hat to make it go away.
Black leaders who have sued the city over racial profiling say the police force should stop sending inexperienced white officers into black neighborhoods.
Most of the shootings are based on subjective fear of blacks as opposed to objective factors to justify you shooting in fear of your own life.
Late today, the mayor here said the situation is scary, and it reminded him of the civil rights clashes of the 1960s.
The drumbeat of police batons on riot shields
Inside, disperse.
was as steady as the rain. But even Mother Nature couldn't cool the anger that erupted in Over the Rhine.
It's on now, bitch. We ready. I just got shot in the back with one of them things with my back turned like they did my friend downtown.
They kill us, man. They murder us, man.
The fatal police shooting of a 19-year-old African-American during a chase sparked the explosion. But the anger between police and the African-American community has smoldered for years.
You got the people down at City Hall, they got all these degrees, but nobody understands a simple phrase that enough is enough.
When it comes down to black people, they're just terrible. You know, you don't have no win whatsoever. As far as you could be in.
The sound of scattered gunshots blended with blasts from police guns firing beanbags, tear gas. It mixed with the taunting of demonstrators into a sometimes surreal but dangerous mix in which a pregnant woman was shot with a beanbag.
He told me to go on my door, and I told him I couldn't get in. I told him I couldn't get in. I told him I live right here, and he said so, and just shot me in my leg.
Ministers trying to calm the crowd admitted the anger was too great.
Everyone here are not thugs and punks and that kind of thing. These people are concerned, like, you know, for their lives. Been mistreated and abused in some situations, and I mean, let's face it, we got to come together.
Now, this riot started after Cincinnati police started chasing his brother, Timothy Thomas, and the police claim he had 14 warrants, but they were all misdemeanors for things like traffic tickets, including one over a seatbelt. So when the police approached him, this brother took off running, and as the cops chased him, one cop, Stephen Roach, said he appeared to be reaching for a gun. but this brother was unarmed. But this cop said he feared for his life and had no other choice but to open fire, and he shot this brother in the back. Now, back in 2001, we were tired of what was going on, and the people had enough. So around 200 people gathered at the city council meeting in City Hall. And after they gave them the same old answers about they don't know anything, they have to keep investigating, and they got the same old 9 answers, which made the people even more mad. And the city council members were so scared they wouldn't come outside for 3 hours. Meanwhile, by the police station, a few hundred more people started gathering. And they began to confront the cops, and they started throwing rocks and bottles at them, anything they could find. So then the cops put on their riot gear and started shooting them with beanbags. Now, the people ended up shutting down the city for 4 days, until it stopped on the 4th day during his brother Timothy Thomas' funeral. And hundreds of people marched the streets in peace. Now, by the end, close to 1,000 people were arrested, mostly black people. And they ended up causing about $3.6 million in damage. But unlike their riots, nobody was killed. Now, we always ask questions about how do we make this stop and what can we do? But to tell you the truth, we already know the answer. We know what we have to do. Now it's just time for us to do it. We have to realize we are all we got. And until we stop it, then it's going to continue to happen.
Well, I'm finally glad to see Tracie Hunter's going to jail. And it's a shame she ain't getting more than 6 months.
Justice was not served. What in the was going on with Cincinnati?
Can't do the time, don't do the crime. No one's above the law.
She broke the law. Go to jail.
And I totally agree with the sentence on Judge Tracie. I think the judge did a wonderful job. She should be serving some time.
Terribly sad that we have lost sight that this was truly just about the law and that law being broken. I think it's sad that people want to now turn this into a race issue, and also with the mayor adding his 2 cents, now making it a political issue.
I don't think it's right how they treated Tracie Hunter, dragging her out of the courtroom. If she fell limp, she should have been placed in a chair.
It's an atrocity to jail Tracie Hunter. She is not violent. This thing has been going on for years. She deserves to be relieved of this jail term.
I have 2 sons that have committed felony 4s, and they both went to prison. Felt sorry for both of them, but they had to do their time.
It's a case of Tracie Hunter not even having a police record. You would think she would have gotten probation, if nothing else, having a spotless police record. But it became a case of a person who is breaking up the good old boy network at the courthouse. And they did not want to have that.
And now, for Best Performing Actress in a Dramatic Role, ex-Judge Tracie Hunter for her appearance in Monday's courtroom.
The tally now, 71 people injured, 10 new arrests tonight, bringing the total now to 30 arrests. Scenes like this prompted police to close off the streets. This woman was caught in the middle of the mayhem when protesters broke her car windows.
We got bombed. She was trying to take me home on 13th Street. They tried to kill us. We didn't do anything to the people down there. They had me about 50 of them running us backwards.
A similar situation for this guy who suffered minor cuts when protesters broke his windows. And this man cried with relief when he managed to get away from the rowdy crowd.
That's the sound of police firing shotguns with rubber bullets and bean bags into the crowd at Washington Park in Over the Rhine.
Trash cans, vendors' carts, whatever they can pick up, they throw, smashing dozens of windows. At Washington Park, a standoff between angry demonstrators and police in riot gear ends after police fire on the crowd. They use beanbag guns, large rubber bullets, and tear gas. A few people are injured. One woman is left lying on the ground. She has to be taken to the hospital.
I told them we the ones who died. I told them we the ones who died, and they shot me with this.
Many innocent bystanders find themselves caught in the middle.
down here aggravating the whole party, just shooting at anybody. That shit. It's not making no sense.
This is escalating because they shooting innocent people and they shooting kids that ain't got nothing to do with it already.
This truck driver found himself a target. Protesters jump in the passenger's side, beat him, and pull him to the ground.
Well, they tried to take off the truck, and I tried to stop them. That didn't work. And here come about 20 more of them around. They started beating the truck and beating me.
Some business owners pull gates in front of their windows. Others are left cleaning up the mess left behind. Police round up some of the protesters and take them away in handcuffs.
You'd think there was a big party downtown,
complete with beer and reveling. But no sports teams won a pennant. Instead, this is a violent wake for Timothy Thomas. Or is it?
There's a lot of individuals here that are not participating in this civil disturbance. So not only are we concerned about the crowd, we have to be concerned about the innocent people that are here along with ourselves.
Innocent people like Bob Deerdorf of Davis Furniture left to shake his head at the damage to his store.
I think it's absolutely terrible. Act like fools.
Deerdorf is not alone.
Some of them appear just to be out for the fun of it.
Cincinnati Mayor Charlie Lucan says much of the violence has nothing to do with the police shooting.
A lot of what I saw was not people reacting to the event of Saturday night. A lot of what I saw are 12-year-old kids stealing hot dogs from vendors and breaking windows.
So I am shocked because this person had the audacity right here to come to our table and tell us that we are the rudest people that she has ever met. Look at her. She told us we are getting off work, we paying for our food just like everybody else, and she told us that we are the rudest people ever. Here's the thing. What you gotta understand is that you don't know what people going through. Oh, you want to come over here? You want to come? She ain't gonna come over here. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Don't talk some real stuff.
Friends that are black, and I love them.
We never said anything about color. We never said anything. So here's the thing. Let me understand.
You're too loud.
We're too loud.
In your opinion, let me show you my money. It's just as green as yours. Right. Oh, you're so stupid, nigga.
Stupid? No.
So call your black friends a nigga. Call your black friends a nigga.
So she basically just called us a nigga.
A white patron at a local restaurant calls a black patron the N-word.
All of this captured on cell phone video that has now generated thousands of shares and comments on social media.
Oh, you're so stupid.
We tracked down the women in both sides of this video.
WREL Sarah Kruger talked with them all, joins us now live in Raleigh. Of course, Sarah, this happening at a Bonefish in North Hills, right?
David, that's right. It happened right here yesterday evening during happy hour. The woman who used the racial slur told me today she will not apologize for her language. And in fact, she said she would use the same word again.
Just like everybody else.
This minute-long cell phone video shows an encounter between customers at the Bonefish Grill in North Hills.
This person had the audacity right here to come to our table and tell us that we are the rudest people that she has ever met. Look at her.
Then the woman, who we now know as Nancy Goodman, calls another customer the N-word.
You're too loud.
We're too loud.
In your opinion, let me show you my money. It's just as green as yours. Right. Oh, you're so stupid.
We found Goodman at her home.
I'm a 71-year-old woman who lives in Raleigh. I suffer from tremendous anxiety.
She says that anxiety and the women's behavior pushed her to act as she did.
I'm not going to say I'm sorry to them because they kept pushing at it. And that's all I'd really like to say.
What about your use of the N-word?
I used that word because they forced me into it.
Do you see how that's incredibly offensive?
Yes, I do. That's why I said it. I would say it again to them.
She says she would use that word again to you all.
Wow. That's sad.
Shonda Stewart is the one who took the cell phone video. Her friend, Lakeisha Shaw, is the one who was called the racial slur.
I don't care how you feel like we should have been acting. If I was standing on the table with 3 heads in a purple jumpsuit, nothing justified you to come to my table and call me a stupid.
Goodman says she regrets not asking management to tell the women to be quiet, but she made one thing clear.
So you're not sorry about saying the N-word?
No, no.
We were invited earlier today to a private viewing of that body cam and dash cam video involving Eugene Grant and the two officers that responded. Now, in that video, you can see the officers responding to a call from a local business about a group of musicians being disruptive and blocking his entrance. You can see the male officer approaching the young fella's musician, Eugene Grant, as he puts and raises his hand up while walking near him. Now, you then see Grant reacting by raising his trumpet up towards the officer, telling him to move away. There is a scuffle between Grant and the officer, and the crowd around him gets bigger. Everyone starts to pull out their cell phones. You can see the officers pull out their tasers. Chief Ferguson said this was done in an effort to gain control of the situation and the crowd, but no taser was discharged at the time of this incident. There's a rally being planned on Sunday by a group of musicians. It's to support Eugene and the brass band members. One of the organizers told me that they want equal opportunities for the working musicians in New Orleans. Now, also, police said all charges against Eugene have been dropped. And here's a part of a statement released by his attorney, Megan Kiefer. It reads in part, quote, "What is clear from the video is that as a community, we are lucky that the situation was not more catastrophic and that we all need to work together to ensure that it does not reoccur."
Yeah, can I get out? Can I get out my glove box?
I don't know about this one.
Yeah, right? do you have like a badge number or nothing? 5174. Detective, man, I didn't even see that. I didn't see your badge, sir. I can't even lie to you. All right, I appreciate that.
I'm gonna just record for your safety.
Thank you very much. And I'm calling 911 because all right, cool. Yeah, I see it.
I don't know. He asked me for my ID. But...
Yeah, as soon as we could confirm that we're safe.
I'm not driving. What the hell?
Yeah, we're being pulled over by a pretty aggressive cop here that doesn't have any type of identification to show.
That's your instructor, right?
Hi, sir. He's just being very aggressive with no type of identification. Nothing scared the hell out of us. We got 911 on the call here.
Okay, listen. We're all legitimate cops. There's no police cars. We're all good. We're all good.
Yes, sir.
I don't know why you open the door like that. I'm a passenger. So I don't know what's going on.
Can I talk to you?
I dialed 911.
Sure.
Okay, my name is Sergeant Welch, okay?
Okay.
I'm with the Newtown Police Department.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we're investigating.
I'm going to hang up now.
We
We got two good cops here.
And we are looking for an African-American female.
Female?
Wow, I just picked her. Here's my ID.
What?
I don't want to get into actual details at the moment, but we did have a legitimate theft.
Okay.
Okay, so this officer over here that's in plain clothes saw you come out of somewhere and jump in the Supra.
I just got off the bus, so no, he didn't. And I just got in this lift like 5 minutes ago, so no, he didn't see me doing anything.
So you got off a bus.
I got off the 104.
going to Newtown Square. You could ask the bus driver. He probably still at the terminal because I got off 5 minutes ago.
Where's that stop?
See, I can
Newtown Square, right up there, right into the BMT Bank. And my job is right here, Sunrise Senior Living. And you can ask them.
Okay, so is this an Uber?
This is a Lyft.
Okay.
You can see it right there in the front.
Well, Uber, Lyft, same thing. Okay. What's that?
I'm a little bit hostile because y'all accusing me of something, and I don't even know what's going on.
Okay.
This don't even feel real right now.
Well, it's real. Okay, it's real. So you got off the 104.
Yeah,
ma'am.
There's nothing in there.
I
just want to look at this guy because he keeps looking at me.
He's with me.
All right, go ahead.
Are you
Continue.
recording us?
I'm recording, definitely.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm black. I got to record y'all. Sorry.
It's understood. So we just need to clear up a few things.
Go ahead.
And then hopefully we can get you on your way. So you work at Sunrise Assisted Living?
Yep, I sure do.
Okay.
My badge is right here. Been working there for 1.5 years.
Okay. Awesome. Is it typical that you take the bus and then
very typical
get a ride down, an Uber or Lyft? Or
no.
Do you have any ID on you?
I do have ID, but I don't understand why you guys are asking me for ID.
Okay.
What
well,
is
like
the
I
problem?
explained to you, there was a theft in the area, and it was exactly in the area of where you were.
All right.
And we are looking for an African American female. Okay, and you are fitting the description. So all I need to do is if I could see your ID.
Fitting the description. What was the description? African American. That's it.
Like I said, I don't want to get into too many details, but yes, an African American female.
You want my ID? Sure.
I'm sorry?
Here you go.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Because like really, honestly, I want to clear this up. I want to clear you so we can get you to work.
Yeah, because
I know you want to get there, I understand.
3 o'clock, right, that's the time I got to be there.
Unfortunately, somebody committed a very serious crime today. Whether that was you.
It wasn't me.
Okay, listen to what I'm saying now. Whether it was you or not, somebody put you in this predicament, not us. We're just doing our job and following up on what we should be doing, following up on leads.
I'm a volunteer firefighter, so that's understandable.
Awesome. Where do you run? Here's the game plan, okay? We have a couple people coming down, some FBI agents.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they'll be just a minute, my man.
I can show you that I just called my Lyft, so it should be no reason that I'm being questioned.
Okay,
I just got off of the bus, and I just got in this Lyft.
Listen, I understand that, okay? But here's what we need to do, and if we don't do it, we're not doing our job. And then I have to answer to my boss.
What time did this occur?
Okay.
Because I have a receipt for H&M where I can show you what time where I was at.
Okay. That could be anybody's receipt for all we know.
It's my receipt. My card number is on there too. I have my card in my wallet. Okay. So.
Where was that? H&M?
H&M.
Where's an H&M? Is that at the
69th Street. 69th Street.
Okay.
I was nowhere near this area an hour ago.
I think before we even get into that, we won't need to, because these guys coming down here with a witness are either going to say like yay or nay. That's it. And if they say no,
if they say yay, then it's false, because I can show you that I didn't do it.
But if they say nay, you're going to be out of here quicker than you can bat an eye, okay?
Okay, so can y'all go up to my job and tell y'all that I'm pulled over and accused of a crime?
If you need us to do that when we're done here. I do. When we're done here, one of us can do that, okay?
Now to outrage on a college campus after this photo was posted on Instagram and published by ProPublica. It shows 3 college students with guns in front of a memorial for civil rights icon Emmett Till. Ole Miss University saying they will not be suspended. And tonight, Emmett Till's family is speaking out. Here's ABC's Marcus Moore.
Tonight, growing outrage over this photo of fraternity brothers from Ole Miss posing next to a vandalized memorial for Emmett Till. The image posted on Instagram back in March and just published by ProPublica. Till's cousin reacting tonight.
Seeing them standing there and smiling at a place that we think is solemn ground, it's definitely disappointing.
That photo reopening deep wounds. At 14 years old, Emmett Till was abducted and lynched in 1955 for allegedly whistling at a white woman. His anguished mother leaving the casket open for the world to see. Till's death helped galvanize the civil rights movement. Tonight, these students have been suspended by the Kappa Alpha fraternity, but not expelled. The school says it got a complaint about the photo in March and reported it to the FBI. Ole Miss calling it, quote, offensive and hurtful, but adding it did not violate the school's code of conduct. We were unable to reach the 3 students.
I think it's very ridiculous that the university won't suspend them or expel them. I think that that's very crazy and very disrespectful.
And Cecilia, there are several signs along the river honoring Emmett Till, including this one, but even it is riddled with bullet holes. The group that maintains these memorials says it one day hopes to make all of them bulletproof.
White Nationalism, Fact versus Fiction. That was the name of the event held on UTK's campus tonight. Good evening. I'm Kim Chapman.
And I'm Joshua. You may remember Rick Tyler from Polk County, who ran for Congress in 2016 under the slogan, "Make America White Again." Sydney Edwards was there at his event tonight speaking to protesters and Tyler himself.
Campus police, Knoxville PD, the sheriff's office, and state troopers have the place surrounded while folks in protest yield signs and chants against the KKK, Nazis, and hate on campus. Folks gathered outside the alumni building on campus against Rick Tyler and what they believe he stands for. I think they're trying to spread hate and they're trying to intimidate people. While folks protested those walking into the event, Rick Tyler got ready for his speech.
I'm 61 years old, baby boomer. I'm a white, male, conservative, Christian, constitutional, patriotic guy.
Who believes America is in trouble. He says he's trying to get his message across to young people, who he says have not been taught the truth about history, demographics, ethnicity, and culture.
Young people need to realize that, especially in this day and time we're living in, with technology being as advanced as it is, it's far more easy for people to be programmed, brainwashed, propagandized, if you will.
Tyler says a constitutional government is out the window, and he says the term white nationalist is something the United States as a whole used to be back in the 60s.
This is the latest boogeyman. This is the latest catchphrase. It's the latest buzzword that has been coined and is now being proliferated to try to scare young people in particular.
Whether folks are scared or motivated, they do not believe Rick Tyler should be allowed on campus for an event on what they say is hate speech.
I'm here to be in solidarity with the community that overwhelmingly does not tolerate this sort of intolerance.
The University of Tennessee is about love and acceptance and diversity, and this is not what we stand for.
However, Tyler says he's not a hateful person.
You know, I say, now, are you accusing me of disliking or hating somebody because of their ethnicity? No, that's not me, you know, not in a million years. If you're asking me if I'm somebody who's ethnocentric, sure, yeah, you know, I am that.
Birth of a Nation, when it was released in 1915, it just had this extraordinary impact.
When you see Birth of a Nation, you know exactly what D.W. Griffith, the actors, are saying about African Americans.
Audiences today, as well as audiences when it first came out, were absolutely shocked by some of the images that are in The Birth of a Nation. We can look at that film and we can see some of the black stereotypes that are going to, in many ways, dominate Hollywood cinema for decades to come. Predominant images there are these black bucks, these brutal African-American men. And during the Reconstruction period, they overtake the Southern community, they stop the whites from voting, they set up their own legislative session, and there we see Griffith really revealing to us these fears, these ties between, we see the ties between sex and racism. We see placards, they want intermarriages made legal. We see them leering at women. We also have a mulatto figure in the movie. She's the most sexual of the women, lusting after kind of power. So we get these stereotypes, these caricatures. And what made all this even more of a caricature was the fact that the major black characters in Birth of a Nation were played by white actors in blackface. So you don't have any kind of subtlety in the performances. You also have a sequence where a mulatto character, Silas Lynch, wants to force into marriage. Griffith's leading lady, Lillian Gish, a blonde, frail, delicate woman. Well, audiences were just terrified for Lillian Gish, that she might be violated by this black man. There's another sequence where a renegade, Gus, pursues a young white woman, and rather than to submit to him, she throws herself from this cliff. I mean, you can't quite believe what you're seeing. And then the movie, you know, of course, comes to this climax with the rise of the Klan. And Griffith really believed that this was a noble group. And the mainstream audience seeing the film took this as fact.
And when you see films like that, it clearly shows these people are afraid of us. They're afraid of our potential. They're afraid of themselves. And that's the problem with that movie.